What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Whole Man. I'm super excited for today. I have a guest that is a dear friend of mine, somebody that I've gotten the honor of working with, very well known in the Richmond community. His name is Ryan McClanan. Ryan is the owner of Victory Pest Management, and he's also a prior Navy, I don't know what they call it, a corpsman? Is that
No,
what
no,
they call it?
no. Corpsman would be a medical guy, Navy veteran, whatever you want to call it, but sailor, yeah.
Yeah, so Ryan, I wanted to have you on for a few reasons. One, I've always just loved your energy and your authenticity.
Sure.
I met you at a BNI networking event, and when it comes to those things, you can probably relate to this. You know the people that are performative and you can tell are wearing a mask and just aren't really putting their whole selves forward.
Yep.
And I remember when I first came to your BNI meeting when you were the president, I just really loved how you led with your heart. And that's something that, especially if you're military and you're a business owner, it's not something that's super common, I would say. So that immediately stood out. And then I think I saw you again a year after that or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's a
Like,
year, a couple months maybe.
yeah, in a couple
Yep, visited
months.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously we ended up just like supporting each other and working together. And I've always wanted to dive deeper into who Ryan really
All right.
is, just because I know that people like you who are, I don't know if you would consider yourself this, the black sheep of the family or the person who kind of went down a different path. Anybody who's an entrepreneur, they definitely have a story. So I'd love to hear from you. I guess talk to me about what your origin story is and what built you into being an entrepreneur. We'll
Okay.
start there.
Being an entrepreneur honestly was not in my plans, I guess. Guess it's just divine intervention and it just kind of happened. So, I mean, depending how far you want to go back into this story to kind of get it going, but
I want to
um,
start when you were born. I'm just kidding.
yeah, right. Well, I grew up I was born in Florida, lived there till I was about 7 or 8, till my parents got divorced and we moved up here. Um, and there's in-depth stories to all of that, but we'll kind of skim and then I'll let you, break into it more. But ended up in Virginia, went to high school out in the West End here. And, I struggled in school, and everything like that.
Mm,
I was, from elementary school, I guess, kind of dubbed learning disabled, had the dyslexia stuff and all that. So school was tough. And
mm.
I guess jumping in, like, we moved here and financially we kind of always struggled a little bit. I mean, definitely people have been worse off than we were, but
Were you in a household where your parents stayed together or did they
no,
separate?
they divorced. My mom did get remarried. Stepdad ended up having some medical issues
Mm,
and wasn't able to kind of like hold jobs and stuff like that. So, working wise, my mom was kind of holding it down, as a secretary. And then she had like a second job and all that kind of stuff. So moved here. I always started working, since I was 15, got the worker's permit, was bagging groceries at U Crops, doing that whole thing. Got through high school, as best I could. I think I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts. You might have struggled in school, but I probably more of just like it was hard for me to concentrate on stuff I didn't want to concentrate on.
sure.
So I think that was the main issue there. So then high school goes through and it comes down to like, what are you gonna do after this? And college would have been great, but then it was the financial end of it to like, I couldn't put that on my mom.
Mm.
I always looked at it as like, well, student loans, but like student loan, like I don't know if I want $100,000 worth of debt after I get out of school or something like that.
Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do if you were to go to college?
Um, I had dreams when I was younger to be like an architect or
That's cool.
I wanted to like design things or create things, I guess. If I put it very light, but going through high school like that wasn't going to be an option. I knew I
Mm,
wasn't going to make it into college and go to, you know, Georgia Tech's architecture school or something. It just probably wasn't going to happen. So, um, I considered the military. My grandfather was career military, got out as a commander, and he was probably one of the most influential people in my life, for sure. Dad was in the military as well. He was in the Navy. So, getting out of high school, I went to local community college for about a year or so and just wasn't as focused as I needed to be.
mm.
In high school, I kind of turned to, I was more of a party guy, unfortunately. And that kind of sucked me into, my goals weren't where they should have been back then,
Where do you think that came from? Because it's interesting because I experienced something very similar when
Hmm.
I was younger. I feel like people assume if you're an entrepreneur now, you've always been ambitious,
Yeah.
you've always been focused, you've always had that drive. And I think for some people who are just freaks of nature, that might be true.
Yeah.
But the more I talk to people, the more I'm realizing that that's not the origin story for a lot of entrepreneurs. They
Yeah.
kind of started struggling in school or not really buying into the whole, hey, your worth is tied to your grades, and just
Hmm.
never really had that super high achiever drive that you would think they would have. So I'm just curious, where do you think for you that lack of focus came from? Was it because you just weren't truly interested in what you were learning? Do you think in your soul you kind of knew that it wasn't really relevant to what you were going to do in the future?
I think there's a lot of paths that can go. When I was younger, it's not like I wasn't, you know, I was talking to my wife the other day about somebody she knows that is a doctor, and then her parents are doctors and grandparents are doctors. And like, you can see when you have a family of that type of, I guess, early success, they are going to push you towards that direction, and you're going to have the questions you might have are answered by people who have had that experience.
Mm,
Like I said, my mom got divorced when I was younger. My dad wasn't really in the picture, so and my mom worked very hard, but she was a secretary. So I guess when I got out, I was, I didn't have the hey, let's be a lawyer or a doctor or anything like that. Wasn't in my book or in my, you know. So I always thought of like, what can I do to make enough money to survive, kind of thing.
mm.
So I didn't have, I guess, that ambition to be like, I'm going to be a business owner and have these huge goals and dreams and stuff like that.
You
So
were just trying to get through the day.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I ended up going into the Navy after about a year of going to community college. Kind of felt like I went into like business management or whatever, and going to about a year, and it just wasn't fulfilling me. I don't know. So I was like, something told me, it's like, you got to get out of here, go do something else. So went and enlisted and went in the Navy, and boy, 6-8 months later, boom, I'm gone. My business partner, actually, which you met, he joined at the same time, so that was kind of cool. And we both went, but we were kind of separated within the service or whatnot. But yeah, went. I was operations specialist, basically worked on radars and things like that. Ended up had a chance to go to Hawaii, and then those orders fell through, and then here I am back at Norfolk. So I was not too far away from home
Mm.
here, but away, doing my own thing at that point. So the Navy was good and bad. I mean, you said you were in the military as well. It's a love and hate relationship. I mean, I learned so much doing it, but then there's a lot of hardships there as well.
Yeah.
But it humbles you, and I think it built me into a pretty resilient person.
What would you
So,
say the number one thing you learned from the military that has helped you, and then the number one thing that has hurt you?
um, the number one thing that would help me. So the the sharper you were as a sailor or whatever, a member, the more you learned, the more responsibility you took on, the more you would advance.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, more responsibility, learn how to do more things. You're going to give me a bigger rank and more money and kind of things like that. So, I mean, that was my goal. So I did go in as an E1, got out as an E5, and I was, I made it to E5 probably 2.5 going on 3 years. I had an early promotion, stuff
Mm.
like that.
What was the difference between the drive and ambition you felt in the military versus at school? Because it sounds like there was a switch that went off somewhere, especially if you got promoted early. Because I know how the military works when it comes to that. There's certain things you have to do.
Yeah.
And it's all about hustle, grind, whether that's physically, whether that's mentally. So I'm just curious, was there a moment where you've started to notice that your ambition in a way turned on?
Well, it was just you're part of something bigger, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went in was I got a boot camp and was in a school in Chicago when 9/11 happened. So you get out of boot camp, you're kind of getting ready to go to your first duty station, which is my ship, and you're like, oh boy, we're going to war kind of thing. And boy, we did, so,
Yeah.
did 2 pretty long deployments and everything like that, but learned a lot. And again, the more I learned, the more I felt like I was serving my country and helping and things. And then I was rewarded with, whether a higher rank and then just more responsibility, but then less time doing that work. I just got I would say a cushier job, but like little higher end job. And at the end, I was getting out. I was called a tactical information coordinator, and it was usually a much higher ranked position, and that I got to carry, and felt prideful of it, to be honest.
That's
So
great.
that kind of gave me the ambition to go for it. Make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like, especially, I don't know if you can relate to this, growing up in a, I'll loosely say broken home, especially when you've had to adopt a ton of responsibility when you were younger.
Yeah.
You don't really have time to do things for you. It's really all about how do I serve others. And it also is easy to feel like you don't belong, especially
Hmm.
when you're going to school with other kids who maybe have more stable families. You feel like that they are really into their schoolwork. It's almost like you're looking around you and everybody else is green and
Hmm.
you're the only purple one
Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah.
And I think when people talk about black sheep or curse breakers or just people who have always been woven from a different cloth, it's really easy to just feel left out, like you don't have a sense of direction or purpose.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the military for you was that sticky sense of purpose
Hmm.
for a long time.
Yep. Yep.
What made you, I know there's a crossroads that happens when you're in the military where you can decide to stay or you can decide to go. So what influenced your decision to leave?
Yeah.
And then how was the transition after that for you?
So, I did, and as you've been in, it kind of breaks up within tours. So I did, start up with 4 years, and I was attached to a ship, right? And, what happens in that 4 years for everybody is going to be a little bit different. As I said, the war just kind of started. So I literally checked into my ship, and I walk on this huge monster thing, and I meet my chief, and he's like, "Here's your leave papers. Go on home for 2 weeks." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Oh, we're going on deployment." So went on deployment, and then when you're kind of signing up for all that, they tell you it's going to be 6 months, and that thing
Hmm.
ended up being like 9.5 or something like that. And
Yeah.
you know, um, so that was tough. And then the second tour came around, and it was just as bad. So end of my 4 year at sea, then you want to look at shore duty. So I was looking around at shore duty, and when you're in the midst of, we're in Afghanistan doing that thing at that point. There wasn't a lot of great shore duty available, I guess, and it was weighing out, being a recruiter somewhere where you can't really pick where you're going. Didn't like that, and I did have a somebody on my ship or whatever that was a rock star recruiter, and he said it was the worst thing he ever did. Don't do that. So I was like, okay, I don't want to do that. And then just looking around, I guess I couldn't find the job that I wanted to sign back up for another 4 to 6 years. And of course, when you're in a war situation, they want you to re-sign. They're going to offer you a bunch of money, but they want you to stay on a ship or go to another ship because it's where
Mm.
the Navy operates is in the ocean.
Yeah.
So I just waited out, and I was like, man, how much do I love this? Which a piece of me did, and a piece of me just was
Mm.
burned out. And there's a lot of Navy's a tough thing, especially when you're out to sea for a long time.
Yeah.
I was just ready to move on,
Sure.
kind of thing.
And it sounds like there was this. It's interesting because I feel like I talk about this a lot on this podcast in general. There's like ego led decisions and then there's heart led decisions.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you consider yourself this. I can kind of get a sense for this kind of energy when I talk to people. There's people who naturally have the ability to tap into their intuition more,
Hmm.
which is their heart, and then people who predominantly, based off of how they grew up and their conditioning, really rely on this way too
Hmm.
much. That sounds like it was a very intuitive
Yes.
decision because logically it would have made probably sense to stay in. So I guess for you, what what caused the feeling within you to be so strong to where you're like, okay, I need to leave and I need to do something different, even if that meant going into the unknown.
Um, then you mentioned intuition. I guess yes. I mean, it was kind of a more of that I didn't back then. I probably didn't recognize what that was,
Sure.
and just, I mean, over the last few years, that's become more a part of my life, in any
Sure.
way. But yeah, I was just feeling it, like, am I going to do this for 20 years? Like, oh, that's going to be a drag,
Yeah.
and I didn't want it to be that, but that's kind of what I felt. So, all right, I'm getting out, and I was previously married at that point. Um, Family friend of my ex-wife's worked in pest control.
Mm.
So, getting out, I did radars and track, I built tactical pictures for, uh, you know, uh, for the tactical action officer and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't really relate to, to real world.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I'm trying to find a job, and the unfortunate part in some things is like, it's just like if it doesn't, like what you did 4 years in the Navy doesn't really matter out in the real world a lot of times,
Mm.
depending on what you did. And that's kind of what I was finding at the time. So I found myself in pest control. Go interview with the company, great local business here. And I started way back on the ground level again. I was making a living in the military, went back and started a new job for, like, I remember it was $9.25 an hour when I started.
Woo, cha-ching.
Yeah, boy. So it was back at the ground floor, but it was I wanted to get into, like, I don't know, I wanted to do sales at that point.
Sure.
They're like, well, that could be a possibility, but let's just get you in the business and we'll go from there.
Mm.
And I didn't move up quickly, which I've always felt like I've been able to do.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you attribute that to within yourself?
I, you get in there and you see where you want to be. So you might see another person that has this job and all of that. And I'm like, I could do that. I mean,
Cool.
I,
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't want to sound conceited, but like I can't not do anything anybody else can, as long
Yeah.
as you put your mind to it, kind of thing. So I was able to kind of move up, got out of the baseline, starting at the termite end of it, and got into, they call it the utility tech. And then I had my own route for a little bit. And then a year and a half after starting, I think a sales position opened up, and that's what I kind of did for about 12 years with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big run, 12
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a great business, a great company, very, like, it was like a family, great employees there, bosses, everything like that. So it was a nice place to be.
Mm.
And even though I started down here, there was a path, as long as you wanted to work that hard, to get to and what I wanted to make was, like, if I could make six figures, that would be, like, just amazing kind of thing.
Right.
So over that time, I was able to work my way up there doing sales and service and things, and really learning the business, and, was able to, purchase a home and all of that. So, I mean, that was a huge thing for me, I guess, in my life. And growing up, not having, like I said, we kind of struggled financially. We grew up in apartments a lot.
Yeah.
In Florida, we had a house, but lost it and then moved up here. And then it was just like apartments. And that was my one goal. Not that this thing wrong with living in an apartment, but just for me, I was like, I want my own kind of house, or be able to have my own space and things. And
Sure.
I did finally accomplish that. So that was great.
That's
That was pretty
great.
great there.
Do you feel like because you grew up having that role model of poverty in a way,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like that has affected your mental health and maybe your inner state, even when you're accomplishing these things, even when you got the house, even when you've built the business? And we haven't even gotten to the business part yet, which I want to get into.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what your perspective is on how experiencing hardship with money when you were younger formed you in your adult years.
Yeah, I've carried anxiety for a lot of my life, and one of the biggest things, anxiety, is money. Anything surrounding it,
Mm.
being able to get it, being able to keep it. I guess it's just like that's my biggest fear that I deal with. And when you own a business, there's a lot of that you have to deal with. So
Yeah.
it's been a great learning experience for sure. But that's what I battle with, definitely.
Sure. Yeah. And for you, do you feel like that's improved over time as far as because I know what you're talking about. There's definitely this, and I've been experiencing this and have been transitioning out of it, thankfully, which is when you grow up in poverty and you learn limiting beliefs that say money is hard to make,
Yep.
money is scarce, money's not safe. Maybe there's a fear deep down that we're not going to be relatable anymore if we make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I without the struggle? Who am I without the suffering? For you, what have you done to really start addressing that within yourself? Because I've definitely, since I've known you, I've
Yep.
noticed there's been progress with that.
Oh yeah.
So would love to hear.
From the get-go, again, I had a goal, so I wanted to start the business. I mean, let me see. I mean, I've always had the anxiety about it, but when I guess I battled it first, like being in sales, I'd sell more. So
It started when you worked for somebody else.
Oh, heck
Like
yeah.
that's what
I
kind
mean-
of started to prepare you for moving from the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I was in the military, and you're pretty much taken care of there. You have some place to live. You could eat every day, and they pay you. So you're in pretty good shape. Might be living on the ship or on base housing or something like that, but you're taken care of. Now, when you get into the real world, at that time I was newly married, making $9 an hour. It wasn't, we were living at like a family friend's house at that point. So I mean, I had to battle up to be able to get a home, and the way I did that was, through sales, I guess. And
Yeah.
the more you work, like I said, with that business, the more I worked, the more I sold, the more I would get. And then I still wanted to progress. I wanted to have those things. And that's kind of how I did it. But I still had a extreme anxiety about, money and everything like that.
Sure. So even when you were accomplishing these things externally, you didn't feel good.
Sure. Yeah.
Is what it felt like. Yeah.
But then I got into, so moving on, started the business, got that thing rolling.
So what triggered that? I'd love to hear, because that's a huge leap, right? You got to have a special kind of soul and spirit to be able to be like, all right, well, I'm going to go from this on the outside, what looks like a very certain situation, and then move into a ton of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So I would just love to hear what was going through your head as you were deciding that, what was going on in your heart, what was your experience like, what were the events that led up to that,
Sure.
and then what did it look like?
So, rolling, doing my thing at the pest control company, 12 years in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I started kind of looking around. I'm a very observant person. And maybe it's back to the intuition. Like I could see that just stuff was changing, patterns were changing. And what that ended up, I was like, oh, they're going to sell the business. And I got that kind of feeling ahead of time. And then coincidentally, I had a buddy that called me, and they own an HVAC company. And they're like, hey, we're looking for a residential sales guy. Would you be interested in doing that? And I was burnt out at the pest control because, like I said, I was making great money, but I mean, you just had to like roll so much. It was just a lot to kind of maintain. And I was looking for something else to do, and I took the leap and went and did it. And, got there, and they were a newer company as well. So I would say like maybe the onboarding wasn't and the training wasn't as great. And I appreciate.
Here's a truck, go do it.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciated the opportunity and everything like that. But I guess the only down thing is like, I wasn't an expert in that business, getting thrown out into, kind of like that field. And, they were kind of heavier on the commercial side and the residential guy over here was just kind of, I mean, they were working into it as like a new business as well. I can totally see that now. I mean, like you're onboarding everything, training systems is a thing, and you don't have that at the beginning.
Yeah.
You have to kind of make it up as you go. So, anyway, did that for a while. And at that point I had, throw this in. So we had just built Charlene and I have, built a townhouse
That's your wife's
we
name?
bought. Yes. Yep. Bought a townhouse. So we had that over the head, and I had, I guess we were there, and then I'd left and went to the HVAC while we were there, and, just didn't take off as fast as I wanted it to. So kind of got in a area of desperation somewhat. First thing I did was like a gig, Uber was like right off the bat. So I was like, I need to do something. So I started.
How long ago was this when you did that?
2017.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So 2017, I, Ubered for a minute, and I was like, oh, I got to do something else. Well, I had my, before I left the pest control company, there's kind of like two levels of certifications you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Registered technician, then you get your commercial. And he urged everybody to get your commercial because we had the years of experience and all that stuff. And he's like, I'll pay for your tests and everything like that. So I was like, I'll do that. At that time when I took it, wasn't planning on leaving or anything. This was before all the heading out of there. So I got my commercial license, and I had that, and I kept it up while I was even at the HVAC company. So I was like, well, pest control's not bad. I know I could sell it. I know how to do it. Let's see what it is to make a business. Because I could just build a job. I could just do it and not have to worry about anything.
Right.
So I did some Googling on my phone. I remember standing in my kitchen and went on the SCC website and got my, came up with a name, and then just did it. I don't know. Went out and bought a used Tacoma with like 300 something thousand miles on it, take a loan on it. It was like $3,500. And the other thing to throw into this is like I had like a little nest egg there, but I'm so anxious to use any of it that I just did the business with nothing.
So you had reserves. However, you just wanted to bootstrap it.
Yeah.
And see what you could do to.
Yeah. And
yeah, because you didn't want to build off of debt.
Right.
It sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was why I bootstrapped it, I don't know, because I was so anxious that I would fail.
Yeah.
And lose, because my grandfather left me a little bit of a nest egg or whatnot, and felt that was important to keep that. And like I felt like what I was trying to do was, I didn't, back then I probably didn't believe in myself as much as I should have, to be like, hey, I can throw this money in here and let's go. But so I tried to bootstrap it, did bootstrap it, got it going, and it started. My brother sent me, he has a little sign shop in Florida. He sent me a magnet, put it on the side of this ugly Tacoma, and then I just started doing it at night, advertising on Facebook and things like that.
And were you doing this full time at that point?
No.
Okay, but you were still working for this other company.
I was still HVAC company right there.
Got it. And then you started to work that on the side.
Started Victory, and then what happened from there is I went to, we'd set up little stands and stuff here to advertise the HVAC company, and we were at an energy fair and sitting at my table, and you have clients come around and stuff like that. But in between, a couple people from other tables were coming around, we'd chatting. So I was talking to this fella who owned a insulation company. He was just asking me questions and things like that, telling my background and everything. And by the end of our conversation, he was like, man, if you ever want a job, give me a call, and handed me a card. And he walked off. And
how did you feel in that moment whenever you had that conversation? And then he said that to you.
I was kind of ready to give him a call. I was like, wow, and that was like, I held that thing, told my wife, and she's like, oh, call him, So called him, and a couple months later, here I am working at an insulation company. They did spray foam and crawl space stuff and all of that. And walking there, and I had some experience with insulation and all from the pest control days and all of that. And I just hit the ground running. He was, I got great training there. They were there. I had more understanding of the business by that time, and I was more just seasoned in sales and everything like that. So I was kind of took the ground and hit it. And it was a great experience, and he was all about me having a pest control company.
Oh, cool.
On the side.
Yeah.
Let me drive his truck with his label on it. He's like, you got a quarter panel back there, put your logo on there. So, for the first couple of years, I would go, we did a lot of crawl space work. I did retrofit stuff for existing homes. So, somebody wants to get a really nice crawl space, but you have mice in there. Well, we got to take care of that before we spend all this money on.
Right.
So I was able to pick customers up that way. And I was using, different apps and things like that to get more customers. And he didn't mind if I ran his sales calls and then ran my sales calls, because a lot of them would feed each other. So that went on for several years, maybe 2 or 3. I was able to build up enough business to hire a technician, so that was my next big, like, holy cow. So I got some, there's a short period of time where I had the income of the insulation job, which was great on its own.
Right.
I had extra income from the pest control that I've selling and doing.
And you could have stayed there, right? You could have stayed in that certainty of, I'm noticing a pattern,
yeah.
Right? Which is, when you grow up in scarcity, we put so much value into what I call borrowed certainty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we put so much value into, well, as long as I know money is coming in, I can tolerate whatever.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, as you've gone through those different phases in your life, I feel like there's a shift that probably happens where you started to realize that the borrowed certainty was not as important as your heart desire or
Right.
your maybe the emotional fulfillment that you were looking for. Because you use the word burnout a lot. Obviously, that's my
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
And so I guess for you, like you had, I know you're probably going down this path. So you had this cushiony life in the sense of you were making good money over here, you're making good money over here. What was the thing that finally drove you to be like, all right, I have to bet on myself and I have to stop valuing certainty as much as I value trust in myself?
Yeah. So yeah, I had to, like I said, it was a short window to where everything was good. I had income over here, income over there, and we I guess I'll get into this. So the funny thing at the installation company, the owner of that came in a couple times. He knew I had the pest control company. Obviously, he's like, "Man, you can just jump out there and do it. Go out on your own and go do it." And I'm scared. I got to be honest. And I was living a cushy life at that point. I was like, "Man, I just want to breathe right now." Like, this is one time in my life that I was like comfortable. Had just I guess just bought another house, so I was able to having the VA loan or whatnot. I had one home here. Wife and I saw a home over in Midlothian where we live now, and I was able to qualify for both of them, and so we just made a leap and we rented out the townhouse for a couple of years. Got this other home, and that was a big step, and still in the comfort zone there. And I remember he told me again, he's like, "You should go out on your own and do it again." Didn't do it. Then COVID hit. So I guess now we're about 2020 or so.
Hmm.
A lot of the retrofit insulation stuff, that kind of rocked that business a little bit as far as like people didn't want big projects in their house. But then pest control wise, my business went way up. And because I think people were just at home, um, looking, so it's just being a small company, it's hard to like, market to everybody. But that situation where people were just home, even little old Victory at that time, people were finding us and signing up. So it really built up, and hired that technician. Again, was rolling good. And then the fellow who owned the installation company is like, "I'm selling the business." So it got acquired, and wasn't a bad situation or anything like that. But bigger corporate company wasn't crazy about me side hustling my Victory Pest Management at the same time. So
Sure. Yeah.
wrote it out as long as I could, and then I had to jump and do it full time.
Interesting. Yeah. So this is an interesting pattern that I've noticed. It's whenever we have a desire that's on our heart and we're not making the move on it,
Mm-hmm.
our situation and our circumstances, we're so powerful. I think that we create circumstances in our life so we can actually see, oh, we need to move over here.
Yeah.
And the longer that we wait, the more stuff falls apart
Yeah.
in our life. And that's what it sounds like.
The
That's
universe
exactly what
has a
happened to
way
you.
of working.
Yeah.
And now that I'm getting more talked into the woo woo stuff.
Yes, sir. I love the woo-woo, man.
The
Let's
woo woo
do it.
stuff is there, man. These things kept pushing. So I jumped in, and man, it was like the most nerve wracking thing ever at that time.
Yeah.
So I've got a rental house. I've got our new home, which is nothing crazy fancy, but the biggest house I've ever had to be responsible for taking care of.
Sure.
And then so I was freaking out, and a lot of that anxiety went into, I just put it into working out. So I was probably in some of the best shape of my life at that point, and then overdid it, and I snapped the muscle, like tore a muscle pretty bad.
Wow.
Enough to put me out of, I couldn't work for, and I just taken on, I had one technician, I just taken on my business partner. He was, I can't remember exactly how long, a couple months, not even a year in the door. And here I am, like, I'm the technical expert, and I would be doing most of everything. I'm laid out. So, and I believe it was going into the wintertime, which in pest control is everybody dreads the wintertime in our business.
Sure.
So that just kind of broke me, man, to be honest. Like, the stress of that, I just, you get to that point where, like, I don't know, just, God's going to take it, and it's going to work out.
So you were forced to
Stop fighting.
surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is either going to work or it's not. And at that point, you're running a business. I mean, you have money coming in, but then money goes out, and it's just a ratio. We got to keep that. And I mean, there was a point to where it became pretty close to like dipping below where you want to be.
Yeah.
And, giving up doesn't get you anything but debt, or something like that. So it's like, we just got to kind of keep pulling. And it just worked out somehow, pulled out of it and, kind of kept going. I mean, we're years beyond that now. We're not out of the woods, but we're way more comfortable than we were.
Sure.
We're kind of over. There's always humps in owning a business that you got to hit, and we got out of that one, got on to the next stride, and learned a lot from it. You can't. Things are going to be good, things are going to be bad, but I just stay focused on, the ultimate goal, that next step, and usually, as long as you keep your head in the right spot, I think you'll get there, kind of thing. So.
If you could go back to that version of you where you pulled a muscle, everything was collapsing, everything in your reality was showing you that it's probably time to quit or give up. If you could talk to that version of you right now as the version of who you are now, what would you say?
Well, I'll tell you more about like what happened then. So like when I was kind of out, I slowed down. It's the first time I probably slowed down than I could ever remember. I didn't have work to go to, didn't have all that to kind of think about, and it gives you a lot of time with yourself, and worked out a lot of stuff, to be honest. And you just kind of slow down and you start looking at what you've done, looking at what you're going to do, look at what you're doing now. And that was good. So,
What was the number one thing you feel like, if you're comfortable sharing this, you talked about you had to confront, I call this the inner inconvenient work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we have to be forced to do this, especially if we're the high achiever archetype, created something from nothing. Our biggest enemy is slowing down. So I'm just curious, when you have that time to reflect, what was one of the most important realizations that you had?
That, however it came about, that you're the problem. If you run into a wall, you're the problem. And that's a hard thing to swallow all the time, but you have the ability to create whatever path you want. A lot of people kind of be like, oh, everything's against me. It's probably because you're not changing what you're doing. And you got to realize that, your head, like you said earlier, what your head tells you is probably right isn't always right. You're going to feel it somewhere else, probably what you need to do. And that might be the harder direction to go, but it tells you for a reason. And the more you can start listening down, in your heart versus your head has made a big difference, and it's a continual battle for sure. But
how did you being the problem show up? What did you realize that you were doing that was contributing to your situation?
Maybe I had an inner fear of failure kind of thing.
Which drove you to do what?
Figure out whatever I had to do not to, and just not just give up, So, I mean, if I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't work. So what can I do? I can learn about marketing. I can, fill myself with knowledge. I've read books, listen to books a lot more than anything else. Listen to like self-help books,
Sure.
Because you're running a business. I mean, you don't have anybody to really answer to all the time, or not answer to, but go to about anything. So you got to keep your mind in check, and keep your goals and all of that. So just, just to be able to, all of that, just educate yourself, because you can really learn. All that information's out there, these days. It's a click away, whatever you want to do. A lot of smart people put stuff in books or podcasts or anything. You just got to learn, listen, learn, and be able to take somebody else's experience and advice and maybe apply it to yourself and look at yourself and be like, well, I made a mistake. I need to do this way or that way.
Sure.
So.
And I feel like there's a way to do that, because and I think that you're really touching on this. So there's this stuff I call survivor fuel that is really potent and powerful at first that we can use to force success into our reality. And that stuff, especially when you come from hardship, when you come from being a victim, when you come from cards that you were dealt as a kid that were really difficult, that survivor fuel is really, really powerful. It's the fear of not being good enough. It's the fear of not running out of money, the fear of running out of money. It's maybe anger at your situation. It's maybe shame and guilt of the things that you've done in your past. All of this stuff you can use. It's just energy.
Yeah.
And you can use that to get to a certain place. But what I found in my own life is it was corrosive. It was, it helped me get the success that I was looking for, but I felt like shit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what happens when we get to a certain set point with that. It's like we can take that fuel to a certain point, but then we have to make a certain decision, because at some point we're going to be forced to look at the things within us and figure out, is this how you want to live?
Yeah.
Do you truly want to have all these external accomplishments at the expense of your internal fulfillment?
Right.
Do you really, is that worth it to you, or do you feel like you deserve more? And I feel like that maybe, I don't know if you've like labeled it this way, but I feel like that rock bottom moment you hit when you were forced to slow down, what you realized is that inner fear, that inner critic that had been driving you up to that point, there's way more to life than just being driven by that.
Yeah.
You know, and it sounds like you've started to make this transition. I call it soul fuel. So instead of, I'm not good enough, I have to prove myself, my identity is wrapped into this thing that I'm creating. Instead, it's like, I deserve to have what I want. I want to make an impact on the world, and I want to be a purpose-driven person. And when you start to switch that fuel, it's like it's a different feeling, right? It's not that maybe low-level anxiety and stuff is there sometimes, but from my experience, you also get that balanced with a sense of knowing and peace. And you have this deep understanding that you're not going to have to go back to those situations that you're in when you were a kid. Like, I won't ever have to go back to living in a store.
Yeah.
I'm never going to have to go back to being the person to give my mom money because she couldn't afford food. So I'm just curious if you feel like, whether you knew this logically or not, after that rock bottom, you hit a different level of purpose.
Yeah. And talking about the rock bottom in more of a professional sense, I mean, of course, there's personal stuff from your whole life in that as well.
Yeah.
So that time to sit around and think, I wasn't always just thinking about work, I was thinking about me,
Yeah.
mistakes you made, all that kind of stuff. So yes, you realize just that, like, you got to forgive yourself and then not go back there, and make that change. And, it's hard for people to do. Look in the mirror and be like, man, what are you doing? And then it's hard to be, I don't know any perfect people out there, but
Sure.
if you can pick out a couple of those things that weren't great about you and make it a point to change them one at a time, maybe, helps out. And so that definitely took a turn. And then now just, living it at the moment,
Yeah.
making those changes change your life. They really do.
So where are you at now? It sounds like you've been through quite a journey when it comes to, you've created a lot of, you're really well known in the area. You've created a lot of success, and I know that there's probably more that you want to do.
Yeah.
What is your vision for your life at this point? Is it continuing to expand the business? Is it more internal fulfillment? I'm just curious to hear, what is your focus now that you've experienced these lessons and are continuing to experience them?
Yeah. You get asked that question a lot. Like, what is your plans with the business? Because, a lot of folks want to build it up real quick and sell it. The industry is very ripe for that. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. Because, I am enjoying the ride, I guess. And it's fulfilling to have a goal, meet it, and, one thing I want to do too is just, I want to build a good business like the one I worked at, when I was at the pest control company. Great employees, it's kind of a family environment. Just good people. Everybody liked working there, things like that. If I can create that for other people, sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. It's very heart-led.
Yeah. And taking a piece from working at the insulation company, they ran a great business there. Happy employees, he wasn't like so much like, hey, you got to work from 8 to 5 and you got to do this. Like, as long as I took care of his work and did a good job, then, I had free time as well. So if I can apply that to my business also and just not like work my employees to the bone, I want them to be happy and all that. And that's fulfilling to me, is to maybe build a business like that. Because, the big goal of, do you want a $10 million revenue business and all that stuff? I mean, sure, maybe. I don't know. There's goods and ups and downs to everything.
Sure.
To where I think I'm more about, I want comfort and freedom, or versus just like the monetary value of just
Yeah.
oh, I need all the money, which I don't think is a good way to go.
Yeah, I think
You
it's
know?
it's interesting because two things can be true at once, right? Because one of the things that I've had to deal with my money blocks is what I call them, have been thinking in black and white. So I used to think that money is bad.
Mm.
Money is the root of all evil. And I would look at people with a lot of money and think that the way that they got there was immoral in a
Mhm.
way. And what I've come to realize is both things can be true. You can have a ton of material success, and you can also be a very heart-led driven person who doesn't value money that much.
Mhm.
And so it sounds like, which is awesome to hear, you're tapping into the soul fuel. It's like, I want to create a good experience for people. I want to make people feel as good as I felt when I worked for that pest control company. I
Yeah.
want to inspire people. I want to impact people. It's less about the money revenue goal for you, and it's more about the experience that you want to provide.
Yeah.
And I think that when you approach things from that lens, you do enjoy the journey
Yep.
a lot more because you're not attaching your worth or your sense of success to this monetary number. Because what's the point of hitting this number if you've sacrificed your soul to get there?
Right. And I see that, like owning a business, and I try to be, I don't want to say well known. I try to know other people that maybe do have businesses and things like that, and
Yeah.
have relationships with them, because we're all dealing with the same kind of thing in different ways. And I guess I've seen people, want to grow extremely quickly, to where, you bypass the comfort of it. You have something great going. If you just cause more stress and chaos
Mm.
in trying to maybe get that revenue so fast, but you're forgetting about your customer service. You're forgetting about your employees. So when you get there, do you have happy employees to do the business that you've gained?
Right.
Are your customers happy with the business, or the service that they're getting now? But you're so crazy trying to deal with all these other things. All this stuff goes to the wayside.
Yeah,
So I think that, that's what you got to weigh out.
for
And
sure. It, for me, that poses the question, what's the rush?
can be, yeah,
Because I feel like what are we compensating for? Like
exactly.
what is the void we're trying to fill? What is the thing within us that feels like we have to do it quickly?
Hmm.
Is it true lack of resources? Is it because if I don't do this, then I'm going to run out of money, which for some people is maybe true
Yeah.
initially. And then I would say use what you've got. If you truly can't pay your bills, if you've taken a leap and you need to make this thing work, there is nothing wrong with going all in and hustling and grinding for a little bit. However, I think if people aren't careful, they'll feel like a slave to their own business,
Hmm.
even when they have enough resources. And because they have beliefs and behaviors that came from survival mode still active, they're going to recreate those circumstances even when they have enough resources.
Yeah.
And that's what you call when you hear people talk about self-sabotage. And when you hear people who have all the success that you could ever want externally, but internally you feel dead inside,
Hmm.
I really truly feel like it's because it isn't coming from a heart-led place. It's coming from fear.
Yeah.
And whatever energy we create from is the energy that we amplify. And I think that that's what maybe your journey, what it sounds like, and this is what I'm experiencing too as a business owner. If we operate from the fear of not having enough, that will be what our business looks like.
All right. Yep.
We'll feel broke
Exactly.
no matter how much money we have.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to find another fulfillment, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm aiming to do. You want to, yeah. I mean, you just want to always operate, like, I guess, in a good, and I say good. You don't want to go down a dark road. Like, hey, you get all this money coming in, and then you do something nefarious with it. I mean, people, that can happen.
Yeah.
If people wanted money so much,
Because
now
part of them doesn't actually want it.
right, and then
Yeah.
so I'm just, I'm trying to keep my head in a good space. I want to do things for a good reason. I feel like I have a responsibility now, having employees and things. They have to live, they have to eat, and it's kind of on my back now. a little
Yeah.
bit, you know. So that's I just want to do stuff above board, and like I said, there's no rush. You know, I feel like, hey, Ryan wants to get a $2 million company. Well, if I do it way too fast, you know, in my world, and like I said, the service slips and all of that stuff. I mean, that's ultimately going to roll downhill and affect people that trusted me to provide for them. You know, so that's something I always try to keep in my head. You know, also, and then you know, business owners, you can line up 10 of them. They're all going to have different paths.
Sure.
You know, so like I might say like, what's the rush? Now, if I came from a wealthy family and you can put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it, then heck yeah, because you
Right.
can, you know, you've got the parachute, you got the backing. You know, you might have more uh,
Yeah.
help. Like, you know, what if your dad or your mom or something like that? They own a business, they've had a business for 30 years. Well, they're gonna be able to provide that knowledge to you. If you don't start out with that or have the ability to, um, you know, in my case, I got to buy the knowledge typically. Um, you know, it's just a different setup. Everybody has different paths. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, I can't listen to like some growth podcast and be like, "Yeah, you want to go from this to," you know, it's not everybody's good path, I guess, or, you know, so you got to be careful with that, which
Yeah.
direction you choose.
That's great advice, man. And if somebody's listening to this and maybe they're a business owner or an aspiring business owner, or maybe a self-diagnosed high achiever, which I'm hoping are most of the people who listen to this podcast, the people who they've always known in their heart that they're meant for a lot of great things. And maybe they're super driven and ambitious, but they're feeling burned out and unfulfilled. And they're just feeling like they're kind of trapped in the success that they're creating. What would be your number one biggest point of advice for them?
Well, that to be aware that that can happen. I mean, you know, you might build your dream, but then, like I said, you can't even enjoy it. You know, I have things that I hope for, like one, abundance and freedom. And I mean, abundance is not like I need all the money. Abundance is to be comfortable enough to take my wife out to dinner. I can go get a new outfit if I want to. We can go on vacation, and it's not that big of a worry. Freedom is that I'm not, you know, 8 to 5 in the field, you know, busting my hump every day. You know, I can be free to do other things and think about other things than necessarily work all the time. So I try to keep that in mind. Um, you know, you can build something great, but then you also build like something that'll crush you again.
Yeah.
You know,
So what would you say somebody can practically do, like a tactical piece of advice for somebody who doesn't want to go down that road? Maybe they see themselves going down the road of I'm building this thing that I'm feeling trapped by. What is a tactical thing that they can do to start shifting the paradigm and start enjoying it a little bit more?
um, well, I'm still learning that too. So I mean, that's hard to say. I guess I would go back to like look in the mirror and, you know, what do you really want?
Mm, hmm.
And you know, do you really want to sacrifice all of this to get it? And there's going to be growth. I think takes sacrifice in a way. Um, you know, it might be stress. It might be sacrificing time to learn what you have to do to go to that next level. Might be sacrificing money to hire somebody to help. You know, not hire or you know, get help. Like, you know,
Yeah.
reached out to you. You know, sometimes you're going to need answers. Um, you know, you just how you going to do that? I mean, I don't know the answer to it.
I love it.
You know,
Well, that was great because the first thing that I always ask people, and I helped you with like the business coaching and
mm-hmm.
stuff, which I've kind of gotten away from. It's more so the deeper stuff now. Question number one is what I'm building something I actually want?
Yep.
What would I allow myself to have if I wasn't scared of having it? So that's a really, really good question
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people pursue the thing that they think they should want based off of what everybody else tells them. And that's going to feel really hard and it's going to feel really unsustainable and it's going to feel shitty. So step one is, are you building the life that you want? Are you building the life that you think you should have? And then question number two is like, okay, well, if it is something that I want, what am I willing to trade to get it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's different when you're consciously in a season of hustle and grind, when you're choosing it. Because you know that, okay, during this season, what's required of me to get to the thing that my heart wants is more hours, is less social time, is less time with my spouse. And when you're consciously doing that, it's fulfilling because you know why you're doing it. I think the trap is when we are unconsciously doing it,
Yeah.
when we are sacrificing our health, well-being, and peace for the thing that we think is going to give us that.
Yep.
And that's called destination disease, because you think that once I get here, then I'm going to feel this way. But then the goalpost is always going to move.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you've built all this success, but your soul's dead.
Yeah.
So it sounds like step one, most important thing, your piece of advice, and I think this is beautiful, is make sure the thing that you're pursuing is the thing that you actually want.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, then you're not going to have the willpower and the bandwidth, and you're not going to have the support really truly necessary to get there, because God looks out for us in ways that sometimes we logically can't understand. I think one of the biggest ways that he looks out for us is that if you are trying to pursue something that is not for you, the door is going to be closed in your face.
Right.
So instead of looking at things closing in your face as a sign that you are doing something wrong and that there's something wrong with you, ask yourself the question, what is this showing me?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be intuitive.
Yeah.
And definitely, I mean, you can take a path, and there's good paths and maybe bad paths, and maybe the bad path that you weren't supposed to go on, like you said, would shut in your face. Depending on how you got there, I think, the consequences of that path will maybe be different, kind of thing. So I just, the universe will give you what you want if you do it for a good reason, kind of thing. And I'm going to go on that. And then that's more of like came through soul searching and, kind of, and it's a whole, man, not everybody, they're not just your job, you're not just your professional. So, again, when you're going after that goal, I feel like, if you're just piling it on, trying to get that crazy amount of revenue or whatever your goal is, and then, you're just piling on that work and you're still not happy, I mean, you're not achieving anything with your personal life, right? So you're going to have everything you think you wanted, but then you'll probably die of a heart attack or something like that after you get it,
Man.
Feel like that people, you just got to enjoy the ride. If you're not, then you're probably going the wrong direction.
That's powerful, man. Well, listen, Ryan, how can people listening support you? Plug your business, plug your website, tell us a little bit about what you do, so people who want their pest control needs to be taken care of, let us know.
So Victory Pest Management, we're established in 2017. We take care of pests, termites, mosquitoes, rodents, of course. Other services we offer: insulation, so we can do crawl space vapor barriers, moisture control, fungal treatments, insulation if you're crawling attic, and we even do gutter cleaning. We have great quarterly services, monthly mosquito services. Everything's kicking off, for spring right now. You can visit us at victorypm.com and check us out. We have great Google reviews, and we'd love to help you out.
Ryan, thank you so much, man, for being a guest.
Brian.